Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Luke from Astro Awakening, and this video is on the Aquarius full moon that is happening shortly. To understand what is happening every month with a new moon and a full moon, we sort of got to understand what the planetary bodies represent in relation to our lived experience, our conscious and energetic makeup. So the moon represents our subconscious. So the subconscious is the dark aspect of ourself, the subconscious, because sub being below, right? Below what? Below conscious. So below consciousness, consciousness is awareness. In astrology, the moon represents the subconsciousness, subconscious, and the sun represents the consciousness. Because why? The sun illuminates, the sun brings light. When the sun is shining, it's daytime and we can see, we have awareness. And the moon rules the night. The moon doesn't have any light of its own. It only reflects what the consciousness shines upon it. If you think about that concept, right, the moon only receives the light from the sun. So in other words, there is a lot of our subconscious. In fact, they say like 80 or 90% of our experience and our makeup and how we perceive is happening from subconscious level, right? Our automatic subconscious habits, behaviors, patterns, right, happening in that subconscious realm, that sort of dark and mysterious realm. So every month the moon comes around and has a new moon when there's a conjunction with the sun. It's the solar seed, seeding the new moon. So the solar seed is almost like a point where a little bit of our subconscious is stimulated or activated, or at least the potential to shift our subconscious or bring some of our subconscious into awareness, into light. And this happens during the lunation process. Is we have the new moon 2 weeks later, followed by the full moon. When the moon is full, it's in opposition to the sun. And this is the point where the sun's light are fully illuminating the moon. So the full moon is when there is an illumination of the moon, right? By the sun, the consciousness is shining into the subconscious and bringing something to light. What is coming to light on a full moon? Well, you have to come back to the new moon and go, well, what was seeded? So if you're thinking about what to do on a new moon, what to do on a full moon, what's it going to mean for you, you have to really understand in context to the whole cycle. And it's not just about a full moon. It's always coming back to what was happening at that new moon. Because the new moon, when there is no moon in the sky, when we're having a new moon, it's really dark and we're in that dark phase of the lunation cycle. We're very sensitive, receptive. We're very impressionable because our subconscious, it's almost like there's a doorway opened up to it, right? So it can be imprinted with lots of different things. So if we understand where the sun was during a new moon and what was happening, what was being seeded into the subconscious, then we can understand when we get to the full moon what's being illuminated. So to begin this, I wanted to take a look back at the new moon, which happened on the 18th of July, and it was at 24 degrees of Cancer. Cancer is the sign of the home. Cancer is a sign of the family, the mother, nurture and nourishment, soul nourishment. It's also the sign of the past, right? And it is a place of comfort. We think traditionally about what the mother, the home, and the family represent. They represent nurture and nourishment. They represent where we feel emotional, because we're in Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, so it's an emotional place of comfort where we feel secure. In your natal chart, when you look to where your moon is, it's going to be where you feel most at home. And what are the things that help you feel at home? And also when we say, what are the things that help us feel at home? We say, what are our needs? And if we look at the moon, moon is representative of our needs. Well, it rules over our subconscious, but also it rules over our emotional needs. What do we need to feel secure, to feel comfortable, to feel at home? Were those emotional needs taken care of when we were a child? How were they taken care of? And also, by extension, when we look at our own moon, our mother image, and also the way in which we access our maternal energy or our divine feminine energy. So back in July on the 18th, just before Venus was retrograding in Leo, we had a new moon in Cancer at 24 degrees. So for personal interpretation of this in your chart, if you've got planets at 24 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn in particular, or by extension on that, Aries and Libra, because they're the other cardinal signs, 24, 25 degrees, then this may be very, very personal and significant to you, more so than other people. There may be other people that haven't got any energies or planets around that point, might not be significant at all. But on a generalization and a big perspective, we look at Cancer. We're dealing with, what do we need to feel emotional security? Now, Cancer is generally referred to as the sign of the child. And another way to refer to a child is a dependent, because the child is dependent upon its parents for its needs. Its needs to be met. Its needs for security, survival, food, shelter, right? Its needs for safety, right? All dependent. A child is dependent, and rightly so, because they haven't yet fully developed into maturity and identity and characteristics of personality, and they haven't learned to take responsibility for themselves. So they're dependent. So if we think about dependency and the sign of needs and the things that we need to feel secure, this new moon being directly opposite Pluto, squaring the nodes, right? So this was a pretty potent new moon that's been a really potent couple of weeks and deeply transformational for a lot of people. A lot of clients that I'm dealing with or that are reaching out, followers, and people are just like saying how much this has been really felt on a deep level. Well, we're in the sign of Cancer, the sign of the emotions, which opposite Pluto. We're dealing with, if you think of the moon representative of the subconscious, right? So subconscious, there is a connection to that, because it's the things that we automatically do. You can have an understanding of how powerful the subconscious is when you're driving along in a car, right? And all of a sudden you get lost in a train of thought, and you start either daydreaming or overthinking or analyzing something of the past or the future of what you're doing, or you're just lost in this sort of like scene playing out that's in your mind, but yet you're driving along in the car. And all of a sudden, you get to a certain point in your journey and you go, fuck, I don't even know how I got here. How the hell did I just get here? How did I get here? And maybe you took the wrong turn, or maybe you missed your exit, or maybe you've just gotten to your destination and realized, holy shit, I have no recollection of how I did that. What's happening in that moment when you're in your mind, your conscious mind, right? Even though you're lost consciousness of the present moment, you're into a fantasy or a dream or a thought, your subconscious takes over, because your subconscious is like, man, we're going to fucking die if we don't. So you get an understanding of the power of our subconscious. It's like, it's helping us or it's hindering us depending on the pattern of behavior, but it's part of our survival mechanism. It's how we get by. It's how we just be and exist. Pluto is the unconscious, the things that we've pushed into the deep unconscious. So this, on the 18th of July, we had this new moon in Cancer, right? And the sign of the home, the mother of the emotions, the comfort. What do we need? What do we need to have emotional security? Being directly opposite this, Pluto is like this deep sort of unconscious aspect, the repressed stuff, the deeper, darker, sort of more taboo, more of the stuff that we sort of have judged as not good or not great, or we don't want to be, or we don't want to experience, right? It gets really pushed in that. So this Cancer moon opposite Pluto has really stimulated a lot of this. Now, what it can mean is that through this month in particular, and up to this full moon, is that we're being confronted with comfort. And what do we need to have comfort, to feel secure? If our default is to go and seek the thing outside of ourselves, we are dependent on whatever that is for our comfort, right? I've got to have the next thing. I need this, I need that, or I need that, or I haven't got it, right? And we feel a level of comfort or discomfort depending on whether our needs are taken care of. But if we've externalized our needs into something outside of us and experienced something we have to have some other person, we have become dependent on that thing. And then we are the child because a child is dependent. So this new moon was an opportunity because we have an opposite Pluto for transformation and change on a deep unconscious level, but also because it's squaring the lunar nodes, which are still in play at the moment. And they've had that shift now into Aries Libra, right? So the lunar nodes always represent the past and the future. So where we've come from, where we're going to, what we're letting go of, what we're trying to achieve, the best way to move forward, and how we overcome what's holding us back. So this sort of grand cross new moon activation could mean that what we're being confronted with is a challenge when it comes to where we've externalized or become dependent on something we need to feel secure. And maybe what's happening at the moment, I know for me personally, I can speak for a lot of my clients as well, is that the thing that we've externalized that comfort or that need for comfort into, we haven't been able to grasp, we haven't got it, or it's becoming increasingly obvious to us in clarity because the Venus retrograde is still in conjunct to Neptune. So it's like the ideal and the fantasy and the what's the word? The dream has become a reality, and we're realizing we're either can't have the thing, can't get the thing, or we're never gonna, or there's something that's blocking us from having it. And if that's the case, we can feel emotionally insecure, right? Vulnerable, overwhelmed. And so this is a point to come back to realize that to become independent instead of dependent, we have to look to what it is we need to feel secure. And here's the sort of connection between this and the full moon we're having in Aquarius. This is the sign, Cancer is the sign of the home, of the family, and the mother, and what we need to feel nurtured, nourished, and emotionally comfortable, secure. But you know the saying, home is where the heart is, right? And next to Cancer is Leo, and Leo is the sign of the heart, right? So what we've been transmuted through this cycle is that we've dug up where we've become dependent on a need that we haven't got, where we've externalized our emotional needs for comfort and security into stuff, things, people, or experiences, and where we've become like aware of, fuck, I don't feel secure. Now the sun, if we fast forward to now and we go to where the Aquarius full moon is happening, let me just get it up here. So and it's around about 4:30 in the morning on August the 2nd here in Australia. It'll be at 9 degrees of Aquarius. The sun is in Leo, and home is where the heart is. So what you're challenged to do, and to come to the conscious realization in your awareness, is that your subconscious is never going to feel the secure that your soul wants to feel. Your subconscious is never going to get the security your soul wants to feel by externalizing that need for security into things, people, or experiences. And this realization that the comfort is a place of peace. You know, I can just let go. I feel secure. Well, that's home, right? And coming home to where the heart is. And this realization that when you do, it's this almost like this sort of freedom, and what you get when you realize, right? Because if we're emotionally driven to acquire experiences, people, or things in our life, we get clouded in our head because all the water is churned up and it's murky and messy and cloudy, and we get clouded and we lose our ability to have sound judgment and discernment and to objectify and see the bigger picture. But if we can make this distinction and this connection between actually home is where the heart is. And what I've got to do is I've got to make myself feel like I'm at home. I've got to have behaviors and habits and things that I do to reinforce this feeling of love in my heart and peace. And that leads to the freedom and the ability to individuate. Aquarius is a sign of individual expression, unique, diverse. And through that unique and diverse expression of the self and the individuation, the sovereign aspect, we can get connection to people. You find your vibe is down here, right? When you're in your Cancer Leo qualities, you feel secure emotionally and your Leo energy is shining yourself. Your solar light, your identity, your self-image is shining bright like the sun on a nice warm day. It just shines its light, right? When you combine those two things in here, you find your vibe. That's just my vibe, right? Because if you've got a good vibe, you just feel secure in yourself. You feel like you're at home in your body. You've got a good vibe. Guess what your vibe does? It enables you to find your tribe. And you connect then, and you don't connect through similarity. You connect through the heart. And that means that you can have so much, not in common with people that are in your tribe, but your vibe, it's like, man, I know personally over the last 3 years in particular, 3 or 4 years actually now, my vibe has been my vibe, right? And my vibe puts me on this platform and I attract people that resonate with my vibe. And I have now met some amazing people through this medium, this social media, right? This Aquarian / Gemini / Libran aspect, this airy socialized connection that we have, good or bad, it's what you do with it that counts. I found so many people that vibe, my tribe that vibe at my vibe. So this full moon, right, is the freedom and liberation that can come when we've established our place of comfort within ourselves. And remember that home is where the heart is. Now, there's another component to this, and I want to sort of draw on it. As we move through Wednesday, Thursday, the moon's in this full moon, it's going to be square Jupiter. Jupiter's an amplifier, but from a square, it can be like quite challenging. And then the moon on Thursday is going to square Uranus. Uranus, the co-ruler of this Aquarius energy. Now, Uranus is sudden, unexpected. This is upheaval, things happening, shifting quickly. So Wednesday, Thursday in particular, be mindful not to be emotionally reactive or impulsive, emotionally impulsive. Really good time, because we've got now actually on Monday, I'm recording this on Monday, July 31st. We've got, if we go to now, we've got the moon, Mars, Jupiter, all in this grand trine, right? You can see this beautiful grand trine here, all in earth signs. So get down to, your habits, your routine, and get practical and get motivated and get started and move your body, get your body involved in the process of like feeling good, exercise, walking, swimming, active dancing, whatever it is, be embodying, shifts in your routine and your habits in particular. Really good time to initiate those things. Now, coming back to where we're at with the full moon, let me just quickly get it up here, Virgo Lukey. As we, with all full moons, right, there's full light into the subconscious. So illuminates the subconscious, and, it can bring things to light. Through Aquarius, we can get this sort of understanding, this big picture, this objective perspective where we can see clearly and clarity. But we can tend to be emotionally volatile in a full moon, right? That's where the word lunatic comes from. And you ask anyone who works in accident emergency at a hospital, they'll say that full moons are like, we're busy than we normally are, because people are emotionally reactive and impulsive. So be mindful of that and how to transmute that energy. Get active, get moving, get your body moving. The best way to shift energy and emotions is energy in motion, is movement, right? The worst thing you can do is, if you're feeling down or overwhelmed or sad or whatever, is sit in it. You got to get it and express it, right? You got to get it moving. Over the next few days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in particular, flexibility is key, right? If things changing, go with the flow. Don't try and resist. The more you resist, the more the thing's going to persist, the more fixed energy you get. So now Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. Saturn and Mercury on this full moon are in opposition to each other. This is an ability to exercise discernment with, responsible imagination, right? So overwhelming the imagination with like helplessness and insecurity, and all of a sudden, and you can literally create a hell with your imagination. And then the Virgo end of it is ability to sort of make sense of that. Well, hang on a second, let's keep it real. Like, let's use discernment, let's use some rationale, some logic, let's apply some sort of critical thinking to it. But if you take Mercury in Virgo to an extreme, you get over criticized aspect, or cynical, or pessimism and negative thinking, or focusing on the things that aren't quite right. So the Mercury Saturn is an opposition, which creates this challenge to balance the two energies. So it's not heavy on one or heavy on the other. It's a nice mix of both. Saturn in Pisces, a responsible use of imagination. Mercury in Virgo, discernment, practical application of like, okay, well, this is my scenario. What am I going to do about it? If you've found through this lunation cycle that things need to change, or that you're getting pushed into this unease, and that's creating this need for a change and adjustment, then get down to practical. Go practical about that. What can you do? And the thing about Virgo, right, with Mars in Virgo also still in trine to Jupiter, get practical is like, well, focus on the things you can do. Don't worry about the things you can't. Focus on the things that are right and stop worrying about the things that aren't. Now, this leads me into the Sabian symbol, which I'll finish on for this short video on the Aquarius full moon. So we're going to look at the Sabian symbol for the 9th degree of Aquarius. And in this case, I'm going to be using, let me see here. I still got it up. No, that's my Canva stuff. Let's bring it up here and let's get in here. So this is Dane Rudge's An Astrological Mandala, the Cycle of Transformation, and it's 360 symbolic phases. So there's a picture of him. Usually at it'll come up. You'll see a picture of Dane Rudge. It's like the grandfather of psychological astrology from modern era. So here we go, Aquarius. There he is. Yeah, there's a picture of Dane Rudge. So we'll go down to the 10th symbol for Aquarius, which is the 9th degree. A man who had for a time become the embodiment of a popular ideal is made to realize that as a person, he is not his ideal. The need to deal with human beings as persons rather than as screens upon which one projects one's dream and ideal, right? The ideal. When we project an ideal onto someone else, or an archetypal ideal onto someone else, what happens is we then lose the ability to judge them as a person. We lose the connection to humanity because we idolize them, right? To ideal someone is to idolize them. And what happens is when we look at someone from an ideal, we don't see their flaws. And the flaws are what makes us human. That's what connects us. We're all flawed, right? So when we don't see someone else's flaws and we elevate them into an ideal and we idealize them, we then miss the ability to judge them on their humanity. They're just people, right? Especially we do this for celebrities. And this is interesting because Leo Aquarius axis has a lot to do with celebrities and stardom. But when we do that and we idolize someone, when we put them in an ideal because of what they represent to us, not who they are as a person, but what they represent, what we tend to do is we analyze and judge ourselves against that ideal. And when we do that, we only amplify our flaws. And the reason we amplify our flaws is because there's a difference between us and the ideal. So the difference must be what isn't right, or what is wrong about us, or what's imperfect about us. So it has this effect of like, we idolize someone or something and we put it up on a pedestal. We don't look at the flaws, the faults, the bad parts of it. And we miss that completely in them, but judge it, the other way, the unbalanced flaws within that situation gets reflected and judged in ourselves. So we can see as we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not rich enough, we're not funny enough, we're not whatever it is, right? Because that's the part of us that we've said is unlike the ideal. So here we have the final statement. This is the Sabian symbol completion. Here we have the final statement on relationship between mental spiritual vision and living reality, between persons and the ideal they appear to incarnate, between the great lover image and one's need for love, right? So you look at someone else that's got that relationship and you're like, oh, I wish I was like more like them, and realizing actually love's an inner game, right? So if you want love, you've got to be love, but we can idealize it into an image, right? So a love, his presence stimulated and aroused. The star on the movie screen is not the actual person. The star's popularity fades away. The person remains. What has this episode of popularity actually done to the person? This is a question that can be applied to a great variety of circumstances. And this fifth symbol of the 60-second sequence, don't worry about that. It's in relation to the symbols and how they unfold, brings to our attention an issue that is basic and may confront us in various forms. Persons versus archetype. This can mean a critical need for self-reevaluation. Who have you placed up in a position in your life as an ideal, as an archetype, as something to aspire to, and you've forgot to measure them as a person, and now you're measuring them and yourself against that based on an ideal? So this full moon may illuminate that quality within your life. And the question would be to say, who you idealize, right? And okay, that's great to have that to a degree, but if it becomes unbalanced and all of a sudden you aren't able to judge them on a humanity, on their flaws, their faults, on the things that make them real, and you only see the unreal, the ideal, right? You're more likely then to look at yourself and only ever see the things that you've perceived are not that, which mean you look at and amplify your flaws, your faults, your imperfections. And here's the thing. The reality is this: we are perfectly imperfect. We are perfectly imperfect, just as nature has endowed us to be, just as nature is. It's perfectly imperfect. Sometimes it's miraculously beautiful. Other times it's horrifically fucking frightening. But all in all, it's perfectly imperfect. And if you can see yourself through that lens, then you can free yourself. And if through that perfect imperfection you see yourself, you can come home to your heart and you can implement some habits and routines that you can do every day to reinforce a love and acceptance of yourself, then you are on the path to soul freedom and liberation. Hello, Aquarius full moon. That's my short video for the Aquarius full moon. I appreciate every single one of you. Sometimes I say things that inadvertently offend and I don't mean it. I can have a little bit of Sagittarian rising sign in me and, think before, speak before I think. So if I've offended you, I sincerely apologize for that. It's not my intent, but we're perfectly imperfect. And as a Virgo, I work on these things and I refine them. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you could share it. I would love to be able to get to the point where I can come on YouTube live and do off-the-cuff, candid, long-form presentations live. I do them on Instagram, but for some reason, they don't always land, and they'll get booted and they won't save. So last night I did an 1.5-hour video on there and it's gone into cyberspace forever. So I'd love to be able to do it here on this platform. I need 1,000 subscribers to be able to get to that point. I'm at 700 and something. So if you know of someone that may benefit from this message, if you know of someone that's interested in astrology and may be able to become a subscriber, I'd love it if you could share this video. Hit the thumbs up because that gets it ranked higher and more people get to see it. And drop a comment. If this has helped you, if this has resonated in some way, I'd love to know. Your feedback is so helpful for me. On that note, peace out.